Good day, you know the deal. English not first language. Mobile yada yada. It's also my first post, so be gentle please. For cast we have Mom, empty human, S, sister, me, and my dad. I have no concrete dialogue for this story since it happened about 4 years ago, and I pretty much want to forget about it. Now, some background. My mother is not exactly the best person in the world. She used to abuse me and S both physically and mentally, mostly mentally. Avoid responsibilities at home, and she also decided to cheat on my dad with several men around 13 years ago, and never stopped. When my father discovered this, he simply stopped sleeping in the same room and stopped being affectionate towards her. He stayed with her for us S and I and decided to raise us basically alone since Mom was always outside with her partners. My mother used to simply arrive home to eat, sleep, and hurt me or my S. The rest of the day she claimed to be working overtime. However, all the money she made was kept away for herself, and my father had to do real overtime to take care of us. And he was tired of not getting any help. Here is where my dad's revenge plan starts. He stayed quiet for a long time, managing work and parenting very well. But in the meantime, he was collecting all the evidence he could about my mom cheating as well as evidence of abuse towards S and I. And he also kept supporting us, teaching us how to stand up for ourselves and each other, helping us understand how bad Mom's behavior was, and we don't need to justify her bad treatment just for being out mother. He kept being the best person he could for about 10 years until S and I were old enough to testify in court. Then he immediately asked for divorce, and got it very easily since Mom kept lying about how he was abusing me and my children, but, of course, he had proof of her cheating and being the abuser, so they got divorced. But the plan didn't end there, since he wanted us to live with him. My dad left our house immediately after the divorce, and 2 weeks later I moved with him. My sister stayed with Mom. Let's skip some months until the court date to discuss the kids' custody. About 6 months prior, my mother lied about me living with her so she could get that sweet child support check. But when the court date arrived, S and me testified against her, explained how bad of a mother she was, etc., and I said that I have been living with my dad for months, contrary to what my mother has said. Of course, she wanted to play the victim with lies, which we refuted. The judge was not having it, and told her that she needed to stop lying because she was being fined for lying to a judicial authority. Of course, she lost our custody, and she was forced to return the child support money to us. Now she lives alone and sometimes tries to play the forgive me, I know I did wrong card with us, only to ask for money right after. But none of us want to see her again. Not exactly a massive, sweet and evil revenge, but after I told my dad about this sub, he told me I should post the story. I hope it actually belongs here. The child support thing, in my country, when parents divorce, it's the other parent who gives the money to the one with custody of the children. We call that money child support, but in this case where both parents have only one children at their care, they get nothing from each other. My mom said she had both of us to get money from my dad, but that was a lie. Edit. This post is still small, but I'm reading the comments to my father and he loves all the support. He is really happy with you guys. Thanks a lot for that. It hurts so much worse when they end up in a relationship with their AP. My girlfriend and I had been together for over 4 years and were living together for 2. About 8 months ago she started a job at a factory. She's a very young, very pretty blonde girl, so I was weary, but I trusted her. Immediately she gained a close friend. We'll call him Sean. She said Sean was a great guy and kept the creeps away from her at work. Fast forward a few months and I see her and Sean are liking every single post the other posts on every social media platform. I ask my SO if she has been talking to him outside of work. She says no, and I ask if she'd prove it by showing me her Snapchat. Not the kind of person I am, but I knew something was up. She refuses and admits she's been Snapchatting him. I keep my cool, but things only get worse with how close they were. Eventually I message him, very politely, and ask him if there's anything going on and tell him I'm uncomfortable with the level of their friendship. He responds back like the nicest guy I've ever heard. I'm harmless. We're just good friends. You don't need to worry about me. We'll only ever be friends. I felt better. Fast forward again a month or so later, and she starts going for drives at like 1 a.m. Like 4-hour drives. Now we shared our locations, so I know she didn't go anywhere to meet him. But it's still suspicious as hell. Things like this keep happening, and eventually I confront her. I think you're cheating on me with Sean. She's flabbergasted. I would never do that. I'd break up with you before I cheated on you. He's just very nice. I believed her. About 3 weeks ago I come to bed. She's asleep, and her phone lights up. I peek down at it and it's a text from him. His name, She didn't even change it to hide they were texting. The text says, "Good night, baby. Sweet dreams, I love you." I immediately wake her up and confront her, and she's suddenly a mute. Won't say a word. I kicked her out of the house because it's mine, and she leaves. She was afraid to go to her parents, so she just stayed in her Jeep all night. I tell my very close friends what happened, and it just so happens the guy lives right around the corner from him. At about 9 a.m. that morning, my friend peeks around the corner, and there's her car in Sean's driveway. She had been texting and calling me all night, begging me to hear her out and patch things up. After about a week of begging me and me saying no, I finally cave. I tell her we will talk when she gets off work. Remember, they are coworkers, and she's very happy about it. I get off around midnight and decide to drive past her work since it's only about 90 seconds from my house. There's her car parked right next to his, in the back of the parking lot with no one around. She'd been talking to him still the whole time. I lose it. I go home and start threatening to kill myself. She called the police and I was admitted into the hospital for 3 days. I get out of the hospital and get my phone back. I wasn't allowed to have it in there. She's blown me up with paragraphs about how I'm her soulmate and she's so sorry and she'll be here waiting for me when I'm ready. At this point, I'm beaten, deprived of all joy. I continue to talk to her and she tells me she hates him BC of what's happened to us and she hasn't talked to him since that night. Stupidly, I meet up with her a few nights later and we talk in my truck. I tell her she's in a safe space and can tell me the truth about anything and I won't be mad, or tell her I'm done with her. At the end of the conversation, I ask her to prove she hasn't talked to him and show me her texts. I watch her delete their conversation in the reflection of my window before she shows me her phone. She must have argued with me for 10 minutes saying she didn't delete anything before she admitted it. I lose it again. How, after everything you've said to me, can you still lie and talk to him? You must be in love with him. She says she's not and that hadn't been texting in that sort of context. Over the last few days, people have reached out to me with stories about her and Sean. All things I didn't know about. Hickeys, her being at his house, etc. I spoke to her briefly earlier tonight and told her I forgive her. I do. I don't plan on getting back together with her. She randomly stops messaging me back. I get a text from the friend who lives by Sean and he says that she is parked in his driveway. This was about 6 hours ago and she's still there, at his house. I'm fucking broken. I love this girl with every fiber of my being. We had a life planned. I had my late grandmother's necklace made into ring to propose to her, and she knew. We were looking at houses to buy. We had 12 animals together. We were perfect for each other. She was my best friend, my everything. I don't think I'll ever love someone like that again. I loved her with everything. And I end up coming home to an empty house and cry in the shower while she lays in bed in his arms. That's my fucking girlfriend, not his. This is so fucking hard. Thank you if you read all of this. I just needed to type it all out.